Hey guys, once again we are continuing our History of Pirates series on One Piece characters which inspired Eiichiro Oda to create them. If you guys like the series and want us to continue on them, remember to hit the like button and list the characters you want us to cover next on the comment section down below. In this video, we are going to cover the famous pirate Blackbeard, who is said to be one of Oda's all-time favorite pirates and a huge inspiration to the One Piece series. The name of some of the characters like Edward Newgate, known as Whitebeard, Marshall D. Teach, known as Blackbeard, along with Thatch, the murdered commander of the 4th division of the Whitebeard pirates, are all inspired by the real pirate Blackbeard. The real life Blackbeard's name was Edward Teach, but he was also called Edward Thatch in some documents due to variation in surname spelling. However, his surname is actually uncertain, as pirates usually use fabricated surnames while engaged in business of piracy, so they would not tarnish the family name. Now, although these three One Piece pirates, Whitebeard, Blackbeard and Thatch, are inspired by the real Blackbeard, the Blackbeard in the series is actually more of a representation. Thatch was an alias for Edward Teach in real life, and the Blackbeard in the One Piece series killed Thatch for the Yummy Yummy no fruit, making the connection that Thatch would always be part of him. And some could say when Blackbeard killed and absorbed Whitebeard's devil fruit, Blackbeard has metaphorically become the real complete Edward Teach. Okay guys, now we established some connections, let's get right into the life of this notorious pirate who once spread mayhem and terror into our seas. Edward Teach, or Edward Thatch, was born around the 1680s in Bristol, England. Yes guys, Blackbeard was an Englishman, but supposedly his family moved to Jamaica, where in 1706 Edward was listed as being a mariner in the Royal Navy aboard HMS Winslow. And a quick fact guys, HMS is an acronym for Her or His Majesty's Ship. Now around this time, the War of the Spanish Succession was going on. This was also commonly known as Queen Anne's War, and the young Edward was working as a privateer where he robbed ships in the West Indies, and he was great at what he did. By the way guys, privateers are basically legalized pirates, and in 1713 when the war ended, most privateers turned to piracy, and Edward was one of them. Later, Edward settled on the Bahamian island of New Providence in the West Indies, which was the base of Captain Hornigold, who was a well-known pirate at that time. Edward then decided to join his crew sometime around the time of 1716. They sailed to the American mainland, capturing a number of ships whose cargo ranged from flour, wine to silk and gold bullion. In 1717, after Hornigold and his pirate crew attacked and captured a large merchant ship headed for the French island of Martinique, he placed Edward in command to take over as captain of the captured vessel. To transform the boat as a warship, Edward added some 40 guns and renamed it the Queen Anne's Revenge. After obtaining the Queen Anne's Revenge to Hornigold's arsenal, the two engaged in numerous acts of piracy. The numbers were boosted by the addition to the fleet of 2 more ships, one of which was commanded by STEDE BONNET. This was a huge era for pirates, but towards the end of 1717, Hornigold retired from piracy, leaving Edward and STEDE BONNET to their own. Bonnet ended up joining Edward's crew, but most pirates decided to retire as Captain Woodes Rogers, the British appointed governor of the Bahamas, had been given the power to pardon pirates who agreed to mend their ways. Many members of Edward's group sailed to the New Providence to accept the king's pardon. However, Edward Teach had just begun his adventure. Now guys, just to let you know a little bit more about Edward Teach and why he was given the nickname Blackbeard. Edward was a tall man with a rough, loud voice. His appearance was said to be quite terrifying. He had an enormous black beard which he tied up with black ribbons and twisted into braids. His beard covered his entire face and grew down to his waist. Before going into battle, he tucked pieces of hempen rope which was soaked in saltpeter into his hair and lit it up on fire. The slow burning cord of rope emitted clouds of thick black smoke, giving Edward a demonic appearance that made everyone believe he was an incarnation of the devil himself, to the point he was titled as the Devil's Brother. In Captain Charles Johnson's book, A General History of Pirates, he gave his account of Blackbeard's life in detail. So if you guys want to know more about Blackbeard and his appearance, then make sure you read his material. And Eiichiro Oda himself was more likely inspired by this, as Blackbeard in the series looks very monstrous and much like a devil. If you look at him, he looks like very disfigured, no teeth, he looks I can't even describe him. Okay, now you guys have a picture of how Blackbeard looked like and why everyone was scared of him at a first glance. But Blackbeard didn't just get his monstrous reputation just because of his appearance. His action also contributed to his character. Blackbeard gutted his captives and fed their intestines to the sharks, and he was a very ruthless and impatient man. If he asked his victims for the ring and they were too slow to hand them over, Blackbeard would simply cut their fingers off. It is also said that once he sliced up a prisoner's ear and forced him to eat him. Apparently Blackbeard wasn't the best captain either, as he would randomly turn on his crew. He shot randomly at the pirates on his ship and marooned them when he didn't feel like sharing his bounty. So yeah, now you guys know what type of person we are dealing with. So let's continue with his adventure. During the winter of 1717, Blackbeard spent his time in the Caribbean. After in spring 1718, he decided to head out to South Carolina, where he landed in Charlestown. Around this time, Blackbeard was on the height of his power and was a captain with a fleet of ships. Now what happened next, guys, is inked in history as the Charlestown Blockade. With 3 other pirate warships, Blackbeard blocked the city's harbour and attacked any ship that attempted to leave or enter. The town had no guard ships and was pretty much taken hostage. Over the next few days, around 9 vessels were stopped and ransacked as they attempted to sail past Charlestown Bar, where Blackbeard's fleet was stationed. Much of his crew was plagued with diseases, and Blackbeard sought the opportunity to obtain expensive medical supplies for his fleet. Teach informed the prisoners that his fleet required medical supplies from the colonial government of South Carolina, and that if they refused, all prisoners would be executed, their heads sent to the governor, and all captured ships would be burnt to the sea. Once the demand was to be met, Blackbeard promised to release the prisoners in exchange for the supplies. After Blackbeard received a chest full of expensive medical supplies, he made good on his word and released the captured ships and the prisoners, although only after robbing the prisoners naked of their valuables, clothes and other possessions. Shortly after the Charlestown blockade, the Queen Anne's Revenge sank. Yes guys, his goddamn ship is gone. Blackbeard on another ship, a 10-gun vessel called the Adventure, headed up to Pamlico River to the town of Bath in North Carolina, but this trip wasn't a usual one. Blackbeard was not in search for treasure, but instead for a royal pardon. After hearing the offer of a pardon that was being handed out to pirates within the British colony by the England's King George I, who reigned from 1714 to 1727, Blackbeard decided it was time, after feeling much heat due to his part in Charlestown blockade, to get out of the sea and back into the land. As a British colony, North Carolina was able to extend the king's pardon to pirates. Charles Eden, the governor of North Carolina, granted Blackbeard a pardon and then ordered the court to declare him a privateer. As a privateer, Blackbeard was able to continue to plunder the ships in Carolina waters with no fear of being punished, provided he shared his loot with Governor Eden and his secretary and collectors of custom, Tobias Knight. Sailing up and down the Pamlico River, Blackbeard stole from ships he encountered as well as from local plantations. Basically, he became a Shichibukai, similar to the Blackbeard in the One Piece series. Blackbeard privateer career earned him and the governor many booties, and at the same time it was legal. Blackbeard settled in Bath on the eastern side of Bath Creek at Plum Point near the governor's home. Some say that Blackbeard ended up marrying the daughter of a local plantation owner. However, that didn't stop him from his adventures in the sea. Later, in Oracoke Inlet, the outer banks of North Carolina, Blackbeard met another pirate by the name of Charles Vane. Rumour spread that Vane was attempting to convince Blackbeard to join forces with him. Blackbeard and Vane spent several nights on the southern tip of Oracle Island, also accompanied by other notorious pirates such as Israel Hand, Robert Deal and Calico Jack. This meeting spread fear to people and the government. Unable to appeal to the Governor Eden for assistance, local traders asked Thomas Spotswood, the governor of Virginia, for protection from the pirates. In November 1718, Spotswood issued a proclamation offering reward for the capture, dead or alive, of Blackbeard and his crew. He also enlisted the help of British Navy's officer to organize an expedition to capture the infamous pirate, even though the Carolina shoreline was well beyond its jurisdiction. However, Spotswood's council claimed that Blackbeard's presence was a huge crisis. Later, an experienced officer known as Lieutenant Robert Maynard was put in charge of 2 ships named the Jane and the Ranger to sail to the Carolina coast with specific orders to defeat the pirates. To keep himself discreet and to avoid problems with navigation in shallow water, Maynard took small ships with no guns, which meant his crew would be forced into hand-to-hand combat with knives and swords. This was some next level mission. My man Maynard was a determined man. We're talking about some solid next level shit. Alright guys, with that I'm out man. I'll take over man. I'm tired of this shit.
Hey guys, so I'm going to take over the video. He got a bit tired, it's his first time, so let's get into it. So after learning that Blackbeard was anchored in a sheltered spot off Ocracoke Island, Maynard arrived to the area on the evening of the 21st of November 1718. He anchored his ships nearby and waited till next morning to attack. Maynard's ships headed for Ocracoke Island at dawn. Spotting the approaching ships, the pirates sounded the alarm and pulled into the anchor. Maynard chased the pirate ships using oars to move since there were very little wind to sail by. Navigating shallow waters that were filled with sandbars and submerged obstacles, Maynard's ships ran ashore. Next came a shouting match between the Navy Lieutenant Maynard and the pirate captain Blackbeard. Eventually, Maynard's crew managed to free its both ships and move toward Blackbeard's ship. However, Maynard's crew was hit by a broadside volley that killed many men and wounded others. Basically, a broadside volley attack is when an enemy ship discharges all the guns on one side of the boat all at once. This is pretty much a kill move. Maynard's coming out unscratched from this was very lucky, in fact. He then ordered the remainder of his crew to hide themselves below deck. Blackbeard assumed that most of Maynard's men had been killed by the broadside attack that he did, but when he climbed aboard the ship, he was surprised by Maynard and his soldiers. The fight that followed was Blackbeard's last battle. As Blackbeard boarded the battered ship, the rest of Maynard's men then burst from the hold, shouting and firing. The plan to surprise Blackbeard and his crew worked. The pirates were apparently taken aback at the assault. Blackbeard rallied his men and the two groups fought across the deck. Blackbeard and Maynard fired their flintlocks at each other, then they threw them away. It was kinda like some anime shit. Blackbeard drew his cutlass and managed to break Maynard's sword. Against superior training and a slight advantage in numbers, the pirates were pushed back toward the bow, allowing the ship's crew to surround Maynard and Blackbeard, who was by then completely isolated. As Maynard drew back to fire once again, Blackbeard moved in to attack him, but was slashed across the neck by one of Maynard's men. Badly wounded, he was then attacked and killed by several more of Maynard's crew. He was literally destroyed by them. The remaining pirates quickly surrendered after his death. According to Captain Johnson, Blackbeard stood his ground and fought with great fury till he received 25 wounds. After the 25th wound, Blackbeard had been decapitated, his head sliced right off from his neck. The year after Teach was killed, the Boston Newsletter published a detailed account of the pirates' last battle. Maynard's crew threw Blackbeard's headless corpse into the sea. They then hung Blackbeard's bearded head from the bowsprit of Maynard's ship as a warning to other sea robbers. The head also offered concrete proof of Blackbeard's death, allowing it easier for Maynard to claim his reward. Like all deaths, it was pretty sad, but Blackbeard went down in an epic fight instead of having his head off in the gallows. Anyway guys, that's the end of the notorious pirate Blackbeard, and with the end of this story, that's the end of this video. Alright guys, if you enjoyed the brief summary of Blackbeard's life and want more history of different pirates, remember to smash the like button and tell us what you wanted to cover next, and definitely check out our other videos on this series and follow us on social media, and we see you guys next time.